We are here. Okay, it is day 18 of the 31 Days of Dread, October 18th, and we're talking The Village. Now, if you don't know what 31 Days of Dread is, it is Dream Warriors podcast annual horror movie Halloween celebration event. This is where we do one horror movie a day for the entire month of October, and we're doing every single possible type of horror movie possible. But we have something special here because we have one of the most divisive, splintering, shattering movies of our lifetime, of the modern day. Now, you can go online and you can read about this movie, you can watch videos, you can do all of these things about The Village. You can go into a deep dive. But the people who have the best insight in this movie are the ones that experienced it. Meaning, we were obsessed. And I say we because I know there's more than one of me out there. And who is me? I'm Peter A. DeLuca, AKAPAD, your host, your boy. But the people who experienced The Village, we're the ones that have the best insight into exactly what it was like when this movie came out. We were there. This is no different than those who were there when Star Wars premiered. It's different when the people who re-experienced Star Wars in 97 with the special editions when they came back out. I think you know what I'm saying. This is my longest intro. We're going to just fade away. The intro is going to roll in and I'll be right back. Okay, so as you can tell, I don't even have my headphones on. I have to get ready. I can't even hear myself. It's always scary when you record blindly because, it was scary when I was blindly recording myself when they were shooting the 17 Bridges here at the Dream Warrior studio. And they put me up in this really nice place. It was 1500 Hamilton. It was an apartment condo. I had it for just about a full week. And, when I was keeping up with the 31 Days of Dread there, I recorded Venom there, so on, okay? And I was so paranoid because I couldn't hear myself. And it's just funny how when you're in like a regular hustle, when you're in a regular grind, it's more of a grind than a hustle. Your pattern is so important because it's maintaining the rinse and repeat. Takes everything out of you, but you also want that rinse and repeat to be stacked best practices. So this is a little bit like Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point. Look that book up. You should know who Malcolm Gladwell is because he's one of the guys. And look, some of his thoughts and opinions have kind of like faded already, but his whole contention with Tipping Point is that if we stack best practices, eventually it's going to tip in our favor. And that is strictly my, I would say my baseline, my foundation, my precipice of my social media strategy. And why do I need a social media strategy? Well, let me tell you a little bit of myself. I'm Peter A. DeLuca, aka Pad. You can find that, aka PAD, on so many of the social media networks like Twitter and Snapchat. And if it's not that, it's aka Pad 13, like on Facebook and Instagram. And sometimes aka Pad 69, Xbox Live. If you play Halo, just friend request me on Xbox Live. I need people in my Halo clan. Please help me with this. But no, I'm full-time guy, full-time IT ninja at the 9 to 5. And then aside from that is I'm still maintaining my freelance business where I do logos and websites and consultations on all kinds of cool things. And I'm still illustrating. That's right. I am a self-taught illustrator going back from when I was a kid. Former comic book artist and creator, and I had a little stint in that in the early 2000s, but now it's 2018 and we're doing other things, and one of them is the Dream Warriors podcast, the long form movie discussion podcast out of Center City, Philadelphia, where oh my God, it's getting a little bit of a cold snap. It's getting a little chilly in here, and brum, 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 brum. I'm not liking it because I'm still used to my short sleeves. So, but anyway, look, I am as basic as a mofo right now. I am drinking coffee with pumpkin spice. I'm drinking my own pumpkin spice coffee, and it's actually really good. I might be on the outlier, but I like the pumpkin spice flavoring better with hot coffee versus iced coffee, and it's a little bit more of an iced coffee drink, I think, now, because I guess like who popularized the pumpkin spice? It was the Starbucks lattes, right? And I guess, like, latte is more of a lukewarm flavor because you add the milk froth, and that's not room temperature when that goes into the espresso. So I really don't know, but I'd like hot coffee with pumpkin spice. Okay, so we gotta go back to 2004 and talk about this movie, because I even debated if The Village is even a horror movie at all. Okay, like, that's how confused I was when it came to this movie. And what led me here started with, if you go back a few days with the 31 Days of Dread, it started with Apostle. That should have been day 15, the Netflix exclusive original movie, which is essentially the formation of a earth god, like of an earth spirit, like that's really kind of like the point of that movie. And and it is a horror movie, and it's just freaking cool. Just because it's hard to track where that movie's going and what we're doing with the characters, and like what the payoffs are, and like all these things we expect when we watch endless movies like we do here on Dream Warriors, the 31 Days of Dread. And that kind of bloomed in my mind to where, like, I'm like, wow, there's almost like a run of these old English horror movies, and I think there's good reasons for it, because there's an isolation that's already frightening. There's a muddiness, a cloudiness to the environment. There's antiquated methods of justice, and there's hysteria when it comes to religion and beliefs. And nowadays, that's scary for a lot of people. We're seeing massive abuse of religion nowadays, which is oddly disguised by, I would say, like, the media. The media doesn't own up to a lot of the violence through religion right now. We see religion cover up mass, almost like you just want to say, like, torture of children. With the Catholic Church. The other reference I'm making is to ISIS and their atrocities. And I think a lot of that is resonating with people, and almost like programming them to be fearful, rightfully so. Because religion is as effective as it is horrific, and I think these, starting with day 15, these random movies deal with it's almost like an expose or a thesis on isolation and the fear and the consequences of isolation. And by this I mean, it's an explanation of the gestation and how something like the Salem witch trials can come about. The Salem witch trials mostly were a fever pitch. People that were isolated and no one could check them. No one could, like, bring other ideas into their environment, and because that could not be done, they believed in witches, and people died in horrific ways, and it's a tragedy. And stuff like that just makes me sad. I don't like thinking about it. Which is really why it's the 31 Days of Dread. As much as I love horror movies and love the experience of getting my insides kind of like turned out, because I can't watch gore. I really can't. I can hear it sometimes, especially when it's like realistic. It's different when it's comic book like, but it's or cartoon like. But when it's realistic, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like going through horror movies as much as I do for the 31 Days of Dread is taxing on my psyche because it does put me in a state. It challenges, like a lot of my subconscious, and I try and do the most to counter it. And believe it or not, because I'm doing the 31 Days of Dread in congruence, parallel to Inktober, which is available now on Instagram. You can follow it at Instagram, AKAPAD13. Follow me on that account. My artwork and my drawing separates me just enough. Like where I can lose myself in some of that work, and even though like I'm very much behind, even though I bought a sketchbook that doesn't hold 31 pages, Bonehead moved there, so I can't do all 31 days for Inktober this year. So my goal is just to complete the sketchbook as complete as possible, meaning front cover all the way to back cover, all original artwork. So like the drawing helps. That's the point I was getting at. And so just jumping back to day 15, I started to collect movies in my mind that were of this era, and maybe like thematically lined up in the philosophy of the horror. So I immediately went to The Witch, where at that time I didn't fully complete. I only watched that movie a little bit with a girl. We got like 15 minutes into it, and then other things happened, as they do sometimes when you watch a movie with an attractive woman. I don't know why I said it like that. So I finished The Witch, blew my mind. Holy crap! There's almost every single director, including M. Night with The Village, nothing but great things to expect from them. And why is that? Why do horror movies have the best young directors? There's real reasons for that, because horror movie is a filmmaker's genre. If you are a good filmmaker and you cannot make a good horror movie, I challenge your ability to weave a story to make a movie. And I kind of do look towards some of the guys that we hold up on that pedestal. Why can't they branch out and why can't Steven Spielberg do a horror movie? It's just weird to me. So The Village went The Witch went to a field in England. Ben Wheatley, my boy. What a experience. Now we're 3 movies deep. We got Apostle, The Witch, A Field in England. What a amazing treat The Field in England was, because that movie, even now, just some of the visuals and the sounds just stick with you purposely. It is true psychological horror, and a psychological movie that stays with you is truly effective. And he's just been doing nothing but work ever since, and rock and roll. Like again, it was easy to see his level of talent with A Field in England, and I think eventually we will see him doing bigger things, meaning tentpole movies. His tentpole movie run is coming, and so I had to do the movie that I thought started this, which is The Village, because it's hard to classify The Village, as is with some of these other movies. It's really hard to pinpoint if they're horror movies or not, because they combine so many other elements. It's almost like a lot like John Carpenter's The Thing, where is The Thing horror or is it science fiction? It's an isolated thriller. They're isolated, so it's also that. So, and we see these elements that sometimes in the best horror movies combat one another, and they fight for space, which makes it better when horror movies compete for categorical space of how to be filed away on that shelf. So I believe these movies, Apostle, The Witch, and The Field in England, are of a line that is a direct response to The Village. I believe these filmmakers saw this movie and were affected by it the same manner as me, as myself, as Peter A. DeLuca, aka Pad, your boy, your host. And they had the ability, they had ideas to respond to it, meaning that this is the movie we wanted, M. Night. Shala-la-la-la-la-lam. This is the movie we wanted. And by that I mean, I have to go into as much about this, like everything. Like, we're jumping into the deep end. So if you go into like the summer, whenever it came out, I don't know what time of year it came out. I believe it was a summer movie. I'm going strictly from memory. There's nothing in front of me right now other than a growing sound wave with my sexy voice. And if you go back to 2004, so M. Night was still the guy. Like, he shook people with Sixth Sense. Unbreakable was like this, the first like super realistic superhero movie that technically had superheroes and had a supervillain. And even now, he made the movie Split like 2 years ago, and now Glass is coming out this year. He's still continuing what he started with Unbreakable, and it's actually becoming almost like a 3-movie block. And Unbreakable, like, again, people liked it. It didn't shatter, like, it didn't have Sixth Sense money, but like, what really does when you catch so many people off guard that were ready to be entertained as Sixth Sense was. So his career kind of became a gimmick, and it's kind of weird because this is a guy that he wrote Stuart Little, like, he was involved with film. I believe he comes from the school of Kathleen Kennedy and Steven Spielberg. I believe that's like who uncovered him. His career became a gimmick, meaning that that's all. It seemed like that's all what people wanted from him, and that's got to be tough. Like, just as a creative force of people telling you what your stories have to be. That's where he's unique. I don't know if there's any other filmmaker that got that treatment, and I believe it's unfair and it's unjust, because we are among the just at the Dream Warriors podcast. Subscribe, support, leave your comments below. Gotta do the promos. So we have to kind of give him credit to powering through that. Now, after The Village, he really did not recover, even though he could always, like, it's amazing that he carried his career with real budgets, real actors, real movies for as long as he did post Village. Because the point I'm getting at is The Village was set up to be a gotcha, and it may not have had to have been that. See, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that Village is kind of classified in horror because it was originally promoted as a horror movie. It probably more of a drama than horror. I mean, it has scary elements. It's a little scary, but it's not really horror. But again, this is what I said earlier. Like, maybe the best horror movies merge categories in an obscure way, in an unexpected way. And again, this is a reason why The Village is important, because it does nothing but challenge us. So let me just get to the point. This movie was promoted as horror. Movie trailers, promotion, meaning what they were putting out press release wise. I would love to read and have the original press kit for this movie. I'm very curious on it. And the trailers made us believe that this was a colony, an old English town or whatever, held captive by these creatures. And these creatures eventually would come knocking on your door. And that's the story people wanted to see. They wanted to see isolation. They wanted to see fear. They wanted to see a town of people full of familiar actors over their head, but truly be fearful. And what we got that. But we also got this gotcha, where the movie takes place in modern day. And it's not an old English town. It's rich people who made their own reserve and started a way of life that was a century old. And it's like, man, that is just weird. It's a weird thing. It's a hell of a premise for a movie, isn't it? Just saying it. So I did a little experiment, and I'm going to do this experiment again. So I watched this movie with a female, who I told the gimmick to. Because we were on the run of watching horror movies, and I'm like, oh, I kind of do have to watch The Village for the 31 Days of Dread. And nothing we watched is actually going to be an episode of the 31 Days of Dread. Just this. So we watched maybe like 3 movies that night. We were eating a ton of bad food, but we're drinking alcohol and just having a good time. And I tell her the premise. I said, this movie is going to be this, and then it's not. Then it actually takes place in modern day. And just that thought, I saw like the gears in her head trying to figure it out. Like the premise alone is tough to figure out. But you kind of want to go and give the marketing people credit at this point, because how do you sell the movie of The Village to a large audience? Without selling, you have to sell it as something. So how do we sell this movie as something where the movie is set up to be a gotcha, but one with a poignant, like a prominent point. And the point is that society, there's a price to pay in society, and these are people who chose not to pay that price any longer and to start their own community. With their rules, their way, with no crime, because this is essentially a community of people that have been tortured by crime, broken by crime, and they make their own reserve, and they spend all their money and resources to do this, and they start raising families. Like they're almost like one generation deep, because people have been born into this village, which is amazing. Maybe 2, right? Maybe like 30 years, we'll say. They don't have medicine. And the movie becomes like a quest. Someone gets stabbed. Someone falls in love. They get stabbed by Adrian Brody, Oscar winner. Because he's mentally challenged, and he stabs Joaquin Phoenix. Is he also an Oscar winner? I believe, maybe. I forget. Oscar nominee for sure. And a blind girl needs to walk out of the village because she can she can do it because she's blind. Which kind of makes no sense. There's other characters that knew of the ruse that could have made her journey to get the medicine to save Joaquin Phoenix. And that's kind of like where the movie goes. The movie goes and becomes a symbolic to saving love, trusting ourselves, committing to a way of life, but then also accepting reality. And these are the themes within The Village. And because of that, it's a significant movie. Now, if you get over the initial shock, and it took me a long time to get over the shock of The Village, and step away from this movie for a long enough time and sit back down, because there were things about this movie again, like I completely forgot. A lot of it was like pieces of it I was watching and discovering for the first time. I've said this throughout almost the entire 31 Days of Dread, with movies that I was familiar with. I would put this as one of my like top movies though. Like that's an ever growing list, like toggled list, but what he chooses to say about the movie, within the movie, because the movie does have like a self-reflective commentary at the end, done by M. Night Shyamalan. Like he himself plays a character explaining some of the movie to us. He's a filmmaker. He's a storyteller. Excuse me. That is trying to find meaning within this medium. And he chose a portal. He chose a way to convey it, to express it. That is deeply important if we get through the shock of the promotion. Like I nearly experimented. I think I'm going to watch this movie again with someone, and I'm going to show them trailers of the movie, and then we're going to sit down and watch the movie. And I would like to see what happens at that point, because these are the things we forget. These are the things that we ignore when we deal with trauma. And I think a generation of moviegoers and film critics were traumatized by The Village because the expectations and the hope, and we were rooting for M. Night at such a high level. These other things just, became insignificant. They kind of bled away. And moving forward, it's tough. M. Night didn't have an easy road with The Happening, The Lady in the Water, After Earth. It took him and the Airbender, the Avatar movie. He made 4 big budgeted movies full of incredible actors, full of intent and film design and set direction and big budgets. Some of these actors own burger joints. They own hamburger stands. That's how popular they are. Well, yeah, they're popular. The food only survives when food is good. But, so we're almost like, did the audience brutalize M. Night and take him out of his game? Did he have to go through this pain and this process? Maybe, but also re-experiencing this movie and really digging it made me want to go back and watch all his other movies. I'm talking the 4 I just named. Because I really want to watch The Happening. I kind of want to know what I watched some of it, and I just really wasn't that interested, and I never completed that. I never completed After Earth. And the Airbender movie I watched maybe one time. But look, this completes, our journey here of the old English horror movies. And it's a wonderful 4 movie block. They're 4 incredible movies. So it would be great if you watch them in this order. If you watch Apostle, then if you watch The Witch, and then A Field in England, and then The Village, and see the origin of all of it. That's a good 4 movie block. This movie does not deserve any of the ridicule it had then. It is, it's almost useless to research reviews for this movie. This movie needs to be re-experienced and re-engaged by an audience that wasn't affected by the advertising. Period. And with that, I'm going to go, because it's just wonderful that this M. Night got this second shot, and he's doing a lot with it. He stayed in the game, and he did a lot with it, and I think that's a lesson for all of us, and that's the takeaway: is there's people in our lives we can give second shots to, maybe sometimes even third shots. And some of these people are close to us, and they become distant, and they become strangers. And sometimes we're the reason why people become strangers. Okay, but at the end of the day, people deserve chances and shots. Sometimes we're one of them, And that's one of the other wonderful takeaways from the village is that this dude deserves a second shot. So be graceful in life and be mindful of that. But this is Peter, day 18 of the 31 Days of Dread. We're out.